All right, everyone, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast right here on the CLNS Media Network. Brian Hines from Pat's Pulpit, joined as always by Alex Barth from 98.5 The Sports Hub. And it's cut down day. The Patriots are down to 53 players officially. The last few cuts rolled in pretty much 2 minutes before we hopped on live here. So we are all the way down to 53 players. So we will, kind of work through that a little bit and start to set the stage for the practice squad tomorrow and before all these are blown up, right before the week one game against Philly. But we'll start with probably the biggest surprise cut of the day at Bailey Zappe at
Yeah.
quarterback. Didn't have the best summer, but still kind of a big surprise here, I'd say, to see him get cut right out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, they must look at it and feel as though the tape he put out this summer, he's going to get through waivers. I know Phil Perry reported, though, some people even in the building called it a shocker. So this was not something I think that had been discussed leading up to it. I think this is something that sort of just happened today over the last 2 days, coming away from that preseason game. He's going to be back, though. He's going to be back. We saw them do this with Brian Hoyer in 2021. They did it with the kicker position in 2020. It's essentially Belichick manipulating the new roster rules and the practice squad elevations because they'll get Bailey Zappe on the practice squad. They'll elevate him for the first 2 weeks, and then it buys you a roster spot those first 2 weeks. Then they'll have to figure out what to do. But it's the NFL; guys get hurt. They'll sort it all out then. Now that's assuming Zappe gets through waivers. That's what's different with the Hoyer situation where he was outright released. But again, they must feel, based off what they saw this summer, that teams aren't going to want to claim Hoyer. If they do, they're fine taking the risk and losing him, and they feel it's worth it to open up that extra roster spot. But I don't think he's going to be claimed. I think he'll be back. We'll be laughing about this in 4 weeks when he's back on the active roster. I think he stays as the backup. If he's not, or if they want to just add another veteran to the room, maybe on the practice squad, I look at Colt McCoy as a guy who got released by the Cardinals in that role Brian Hoyer was in last year. And by the way, Brian Hoyer's not come to save him this time. He's still on the Raiders. Colt McCoy is a guy I would look at. The other guy I wonder about is A.J. McCarron. Played for Bill O'Brien in Houston, comes out of Alabama, has that Nick Saban connection. He turned down NFL offers back in March to go play in the XFL, put things on tape, maybe show his skill set a little bit more. The Patriots have been interested in him in the past. So he's a guy I wonder if they would call. But regardless, I think ultimately Bailey Zappe ends up a New England Patriot at this time tomorrow after waivers have cleared. He might be on the practice squad, but I think he'll be back.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That, like, when it first happened and it was a surprise, and then you kind of thought of that Hoyer situation where they're just probably finagling things to get another body, keep 7 corners, I think they're at right now, keep all these O-linemen, these tackles they just traded for. But I mean, they don't have another quarterback behind Mac, and we'll talk about Malik in a second here, but they obviously need someone. So as Bill said before, if he's subjecting someone to waivers, he's comfortable with losing them, right? And that's probably where we said it wasn't a great summer. Granted, it was with the backups against Tennessee, but it wasn't a great performance from Zappe. Looks like they might be comfortable letting him go here, but he'll probably clear waivers, you'd imagine, and they just get him right back on the practice squad. And then in a few weeks, he's back on the active roster, and we're just back to where we were 2 hours ago, right? So that's probably where it's at with Zappe. But there was about 2 minutes there when he got cut that it looked like it was just going to be Malik Cunningham at QB2. And then he gets released too. So you think he's in that same boat? Looks like they want to get him back on the practice squad. You think he's going to be good to just kind of slip through waivers there today?
I would say as an umbrella, all the guys that were at practice today that later got cut. So that's Malik Cunningham. That's Bailey Zappe. That's Thyrick Pitts was another guy. Why can't I think of any names right now?
Ronnie Perkins.
Ronnie Perkins was another one. Yeah.
Evan Harris, J.J. Taylor.
J.J. Taylor wasn't in practice. I want to get to J.J. Taylor. He might be his own thing. But Jeremiah Farms, another one.
Matt Sokol.
That tells me that they want those guys back on the practice squad. Now, some of them, the younger guys, have to go through waivers. Maybe they don't get back. That's its own thing. But they're generally pretty good about, hey, if you're not going to be here, we're not going to waste your time. So I would say for those guys, Cunningham included, the plan is to get them back if they can get them back. Now, Cunningham, like Zappe, is another guy that could realistically get claimed. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he definitely will. I think if they felt like he would definitely get claimed, they wouldn't have waived him. They would have traded him. You look at what the Broncos did with Alberto earlier today, right? It was announced they were going to waive him. And then at the last minute, the Eagles come in and they get a pick swap out of it, which isn't a lot, but it's still better than nothing. So I think Cunningham's going to be here as long as he doesn't get claimed. I do think he's going to be here. I do still think they have a plan for him. That plan just isn't him on the 53-man roster initially, which makes sense the way his workload kind of decreased after that first preseason game. It really felt like they were in kind of a preparation period with him, and then that sort of dipped off the last few weeks.
Yep. So, with that practice squad, you probably expect, I mean, if they're 53, and what do we count with the guys at practice today? It was right around that's 60.
I had them at 67 players at practice today.
Okay.
69 players will ultimately be on the team between the active roster and the practice squad. Now, that doesn't account for a guy like Tyquan Thornton or Riley Reif, who may make the initial 53, then get put on IR. They no longer count against that 69 player number. So spots can open up there. They're definitely going to have external additions coming in the next few days. I would guess heavily on the practice squad, maybe on the 53-man roster, but I think they made those additions in Vidarian Lowe and Tyrone Wheatley, who we can get to. But yeah, I think that the group we saw out there today is pretty much their group.
Yep. And that's kind of what Bill alluded to, because they had that 8 to 10 players they cut a few days ago, and Belichick said, we owe that to them. Let them go try to find a fresh start elsewhere. But the guys that you're making practice a few hours before cutdown day, those are probably the guys you want to let stay around and hope to get back on that practice squad. But we can shoot over to that offensive line quick, because that's obviously the most polarizing position probably on the roster right now.
Is it polarizing? Implies that people feel different ways about it. I think everybody feels the same way about it.
That's true. That's true. But
I don't know. Show me the person who's super optimistic about the Patriots offensive line. I'd love to meet them.
Well, maybe after today, they're starting to get a little more optimism, because Calvin Anderson activated off the NFI today, out at practice today, seemed to be in good spirits in the locker room after. Connor McDermott, he got put on IR today, so his year is done. But they get Calvin Anderson back. They lose Connor McDermott, and then I believe they cut, it was Chasen Hines, James Ferentz, Cody Russi, Andrew Stuber. I believe that's everyone on the O-line. So starting to maybe get some bodies back. And Cole Strange back at practice. I think he was there Sunday, but looked to be limited. He
was there at the start of practice, which was new. He's been doing that thing where he comes out at the end of practice and just sort of hangs around.
But it looked like he was ready to ramp up his participation today. Same with maybe Mike Onwenu. So I don't know. Maybe we're getting some reinforcements there. Maybe.
Yeah. Look, their plan from the beginning. We've talked about this, Brian. Was throw things against the wall and see what sticks. And who was what's his name when DJ Fluker worked out? I kind of said this. If that's going to be your plan, I don't like it. But if you're going to do that plan, do it. Throw as much against the wall as you can, because the more guys you try out, the higher chance one of them is a hit. And it feels like that's what they've done the last couple of days. They activate Calvin Anderson. They trade for 2 more tackles. They're going to have shots at this thing. I don't know how many of them are viable shots. I'm intrigued by Calvin Anderson. I've said that since the spring. I don't know how NFL ready he is, but he probably is the best shot. The problem is he's only left tackle. So is Trent Brown moving to the right side? Is he just backing up Trent Brown and he's, the improvement over Andrew Stuber? And then what are you doing on the right side? I did like Vidarian Lowe for them in the draft last year. People who have watched the show for that long will remember that. He was a 4-year starter at Illinois. Something you look for. There's some guys that are just studs their entire college career, and good for them, and those are first-round picks. Another kind of player is the guy that comes on late but shows significant growth, and I just think the way Lowe grew throughout his college career and improved over his 4 or 5 years as a starter at Illinois showed a guy that knows how to get better, knows how to improve, knows how to learn. And that in and of itself is a skill. Does that make him a starting caliber right tackle? No. But again, when you're just throwing things against the wall, a guy that has a knack for improving and can improve at a rate faster than others is not a bad guy to have on the roster. So I think we were on the air the day the Tyrone Wheatley trade, right? We
didn't get to Lowe because that was
that was at night.
Yeah.
Right. So I've established I didn't love that trade. I wish they would have stuck it out with Pierre Strong.
Okay, yeah.
And Tyrone Wheatley to me is a flyer. Like Pierre Strong was kind of a flyer too, but I think he was a better flyer. But I do like Vidarian Lowe for a 6th-round pick. I think that's a good trade. I wish they'd made that trade a month ago so that, Lowe could get reps with the team in practice. And so Bailey Zappe gets a fair shot in these preseason games and doesn't get his ass kicked. But that one works for me. That one moves the needle for me a little bit. But this is what it's going to be. It's going to be an experiment. We hear that thing all the time, Brian, that September is an extension of the preseason. This offensive line's not done. There is not going to be a group that they put out and say, wipe their hands and say, this is our offensive line. I think this thing's still a work in progress, and they're going to keep trying guys out.
Yep. And it's worth noting that with Vidarian Lowe, a lot of that later college progression came under Brett Bielema, who, former Patriot coach, Belichick guy. So they have that connection there. Maybe, you mentioned they should have made that trade a month ago. I looked at a few Vikings roster projections, and everyone I saw had Lowe on their 53 projections. So maybe that was something he just, became available late here, and they took the chance on him there. But yeah, I like that trade. But I think we're just going to keep kind of rotating through these right tackles. Hopefully they have their 4, and Trent Brown can be the good Trent Brown, the locked-in Trent Brown. Strange and Onwenu are healthy. Andrews can stay healthy, and then we just have to worry about that right tackle spot. But who knows? We'll keep throwing stuff.
I will say though, we did see Michael Onwenu take it was a snap or two at right tackle in practice today. So get the hopes up.
Yeah, we'll see there. But weapons. Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas on the team. They kept 6 wide receivers as we kind of thought they were headed the last few years or few weeks in practice. And then running backs, J.J. Taylor, who I know you want to talk about quick, got cut, might not be coming back on the practice squad. And then Ty Montgomery also got cut. He's a vested vet, though, so doesn't need waivers. He could possibly just, re-sign here tomorrow and be right back on the roster.
Yeah. That could happen. On Taylor, I thought it was really interesting. Karen Garrigan reported that he doesn't necessarily want to come back on the practice squad. He wants to find somewhere where he can start. Good for him for that. I mean, he wants to get his career going. It's been 4 years. I talked to him actually a little bit yesterday in the locker room, and I was sort of asking him about the practice squad. He seemed annoyed by it. I just thought it was the stress of it being cut. Not even him. I was just like, how do you handle cut down day and talking to younger guys about that? Because I was talking about being a leader on the team. I thought he was going to make the team, but yeah, good for him, but that's another guy. I wouldn't be surprised if we see an external addition at running back that maybe brings somebody in on the practice squad in that quicker, shiftier back sort of mold to pair with Kevin Harris. Whether that is Ty Montgomery, whether that is somebody else.
Kevin Harris was released too, right?
Kevin Harris was released, yes.
Yep. So same type of thing with quarterback almost, just 2 running backs there, so you'd expect some movement going forward. Same with tight end. They cut all those backups. It's just Henry and Gesicki on the 53, which I think we kind of thought that's what they've done the last 2 years, even though they play those 2 tight ends a lot with Henry and Jonnu, and they expect that heavy usage again with Henry and Gesicki. But, Ferkser, Sokol, those are guys you can slide onto the practice squad probably pretty easily and bump them up on game day when you need them to. So looks like that's where that's probably headed there for that tight end spot.
Yeah, again, no surprises there. The 6 receivers. A little surprised by 2 running backs. I thought they'd keep one of Taylor or Montgomery, but again, those guys could be back.
Yep. Defensively, seemed pretty what we expected. They did keep 7 corners, Amir Speed, and who was more of a specialist, I'd say.
This was really interesting. Sorry to cut you off there, Brian, but the Patriots, did you see the graphic they put out with the roster?
Yeah, the choose your character one.
Whatever it was. Yeah, but so all of the offensive players have up, and they deleted it. That's interesting. Did they put it back up there? Hang on, let me see. Or maybe what I said got it deleted.
I have the graphic with the tweet.
Do you have the graphic?
Yeah.
Oh, it's back up. Okay, there must have been a typo in there or something. All right, so anyway, all the offensive players have red behind their headshot. All the defensive players have blue. and the specialists all have gray or white or whatever that is. So that's Slater, Ryland, Behringer, Cardona, Schooler, also Chris Board and Amir Speed. So I think they see those guys as pure specialists. I don't think they see those. Board will play defense. We saw him practice on defense. I was a little surprised by that. I think Amir Speed may be a full-time specialist.
Yeah. Well, that's how it looks on the graphic, and that's what we've kind of seen, throughout the preseason. Maybe he could give you some boundary corner depth if you really need it, but it looks like, where he projects right out of the gate is that specialist spot, and kind of that same, category of speed. Isaiah Bolden, he's on IR. His year's done after that, injury in Green Bay. So other defense, Ronnie Perkins, maybe, he was the guy who was building some momentum late. He got released today. Calvin Munson was another one of those guys, but again, Munson was a vested vet. He seemed like a pretty popular candidate to get released initially and then be brought back within the next 24 hours in some capacity.
There was a report, I think it was Mark Daniels. I don't want to misattribute, but I don't want to pass it off as my own either. Excuse me. Somebody report. Yeah, it was Mark Daniels. Patriots are cutting Calvin Munson per source. However, look for the linebacker to go back to the 53-man roster tomorrow after the Patriots place someone on IR. So that's not even back on the practice squad. We're going to get somebody on IR and then re-sign you for Munson, which makes sense. And that would be probably Tyquan Thornton, Riley Reif. I'm guessing one, if not both of those guys will go on IR tomorrow, and that's where they'll get the roster spot.
Yep. Agree with you there. Any other cuts? We can talk about the trade in the second too, but any other cuts that kind of caught your mind? I think Jeremiah Farms.
Saw that. Good for Sam Roberts for making that late push, getting on the team. Oh, I know people want me to talk about Nick Folk. I said the whole time, you couldn't rule out them keeping two kickers, but I didn't say they were going to do it. I said you couldn't rule it out. And then it became pretty obvious with the kicker shortage around the league that Nick Folk was going to be tradable. I thought they could have gotten more. Yeah. I wonder if they went to Nick Folk just as a respect thing and said, where do you want to go? And, we'll do our best there. Nashville makes sense for him. It's close to home. A little surprised he didn't go to Dallas, but 7th round pick they otherwise don't have, right? If they just cut him. So it's about right. It's more or less how that thing should have ended.
Yep.
They got it right.
Goes to Vrabel too. That'll be good. Good for Folk, yeah, but it's the rookie show now. Time to, hang on to your butts. It's the rookie show. So
some people were asking about this. People have actually been asking me about this since the draft, and I kept as being lazy or forgetting to find the number until earlier today. So the last time a team had both a rookie kicker and punter in week 1
the Raiders?
Was the 2015 Miami Dolphins.
Oh.
Andrew Franks and Matt Darr. The 2018 Raiders are the last team to have a rookie kicker and punter both play at least 10 games. And that was Daniel Carlson and Johnny Townsend. Daniel Carlson actually started that year with the Vikings and then was cut early on and went to the Raiders. So you're talking about 5 to 10 years ago, last time we saw something like this.
Yeah.
We'll see. Obviously, that 10 game number is a big one, but these aren't just rookie kickers and punters. These are guys you drafted. The expectation should be that they finish out the season. They shouldn't have to be going, pending an injury. They shouldn't have to be going and looking for a kicker or a punter at any point this year, any point in the next 4 years, really.
Yeah, I agree. That's the record we're going for. 11 games. Well, hopefully 17 games. But
it might be more. I like you want them to play 7. I use 10 as an arbitrary number. It was just like there are teams that for an individual game here or there had both because guys were hurt. But I was thinking like more than half the season, for more than half, like on purpose, not got backed into it and had no other option, but on purpose had a rookie kicker and punter. So I felt like 10 games was a fair cutoff. Nice round number.
That's good. One more I wanted to ask you about Josh Bledsoe. What do you think? I mean, we know the practice talent in their safety room, but you think he's just practice squad guy?
Yeah.
Yep. And then Eric brought it up for me down there in the comments. What do you think? Do you think Farms is going to be that nose tackle? That depth nose tackle that we kind of thought might be Carl Davis, or is it just Farms, or do you think that could be a place where they look for a guy outside of the organization?
An interesting one. Danny Shelton got cut by the Chiefs. And before you yell at me and say he's too old, he's only 30, which surprised me. But that's really not old. And he only played in 1 game last year. So you think he's fresh. I don't know how rusty he is, but for a backup nose tackle, like behind Godshaw, yeah, I take Danny Shelton. I think Danny Shelton's better than Carl Davis, right? I think that there is an upgrade. So I wonder if they call Danny Shelton, even on the practice squad, maybe they get him on the active roster. But there were a couple of guys today who I would have liked to see him make the call. Alberto obviously got traded. Danny Shelton was one of them. Colt McCoy. I'm trying to remember. I know there were like one or two others. Did Jack Coletto make the Niners?
I'd have to look it up.
I'm looking. Jack Coletto was cut. Jack Coletto's a guy I would really like to see them call.
Did he played some tight end at the Shrine Bowl, right? And
he plays fullback, tight end, and off-ball linebacker. Yeah, and he was on their team at the Shrine Bowl. I thought he was good.
Yeah, he seemed like a Patriot guy.
Yeah.
So, yep, there'll be tons of movement there as always over the next 24 hours. The initial 53, however long you think it's going to last, probably won't be too long, but
usually about 24 hours because they're putting in waiver claims now, and it'll be 4:00 tomorrow, so it'll be kind of quiet.
Is it 1
They can
PM?
sign veterans right now. No, I think it's 4:00. I think it's 24 hours. It's every 24 hours. Maybe last year sometimes it leaks out that like this team put in a claim on this player, but unless it's the Cardinals, that doesn't mean anything. Yeah. The Cardinals are at the top of the waiver order there. So we'll see. They could still sign veterans, so maybe we get some news there. But yeah, the waiver stuff, we'll know about Zappe and those guys in the next 24 hours, and then you start building the practice squad.
Yep. We'll see if Tyquan or Riley Reif end up on IR, miss 4 weeks here. I just pointed out Cody Davis and Trey Flowers. They did start the year on PUP, so they'll be missing some time there as well. Kind of expected after we didn't see them all summer, but I believe that's pretty much it for the cuts today, down to 53. I don't know, any other last thoughts on your side?
I would tell everybody relax about the quarterback thing, about all of it. There's more moves coming. I see people freaking out the tight ends. They're going to have enough players. Let's put it that way. They're going to have enough players. Whether those players are good enough, we're going to find out. I know people have thoughts on that, but they will have enough players on the roster. I'm not worried about that.
Yep. All right, so let's hear from our friends at Fanduel, and then we will get into a little fantasy football talk after that.
You want I got to pull up the read here. Take a question real quick while I pull up the read, and I got to get TJ on.
All right. Let's see in the chat quick. Felipe. Oh, wait. Nope, wrong one. Is Malik Cunningham back in any way? I believe they want him back on the practice squad. That's what it sounds like. It's just, can they get him through waivers there? And I would think they can, based off all 32 teams passed him in the draft as a quarterback. No one's probably going to go for him as a receiver based off what we saw in the preseason. So I'd imagine they can get him back in whatever role they hope there.
All right, let's get into some FanDuel stuff here now. Get ready for this show's brought to you by, I should tell people, the show's brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL in Massachusetts, 21 plus in present in MA. First online real money wager only, $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Hope is here. Gambling helpline ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. NFL Sunday Ticket offer ends 9/18/23. No refunds. Terms and embargoes apply. $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket, not YouTube TV. YouTube TV base plan required to watch YouTube TV. Redemption requires a Google account and current form of payment. Commercial use excluded. Subscriptions renewed. Cancel anytime. All right, now that we got the lawyers out of the way, we'll get TJ Horgan in here in a second. He covers fantasy sports for fantasy football for fantasypros.com. TJ does a great job. I get asked all the time on here to talk about fantasy. I know a lot of you guys have asked us to do a fantasy thing, fantasy segment. People are having their drafts this week. Brian, I know you had yours, so I figure we'll get TJ on. We'll get one of the experts on to do it. And here he is from Fantasy Pros, Burlington, Massachusetts' own TJ Horgan. TJ, what's up, dude?
What's up, guys? How we doing?
Good. So let's start here. Brian, you had your draft last week. We had to get off the show quick. Let TJ. I want TJ to grade how you did. How'd you do? Let him know who you got.
I thought I did good. I got well, the big polarizing pick now is Jonathan Taylor, obviously, but
oh boy, that's tough.
So I got
him.
I got him in the third round. I was at the point I went Cooper Kupp and Chris Olave 1-2. So I'm like, I need a running back there in the third, and he was there. So I took the chance. So if it's 4 weeks and he's back, I still have some hope there, but I don't know. You tell me. Is that false hope?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I probably wouldn't be taking him in the third round, but you know, we didn't know that he was confirmed on the team and on PUP and gone for 4 weeks until today. So I can't blame you. You didn't do anything wrong. You know, it looked. I took him in drafts that I had a couple days ago as well. So you know, you just got to hope for the best there. And it's, you know, it's Indy is a tough situation where there's not a clear handcuff. You know, it's either. We're going to find out week one whether it's Zach Moss, Deion Jackson, Evan Hull, or switching every week.
Also, if you guys have fantasy questions for TJ, you have drafts coming up, you want to know what to do, put them in the chat. We'll get to them. But since this is a Patriots show, and I know Patriots fans are always itching to draft Patriots players, which can't always be easy. TJ, which Patriots players do you like this year?
I'm trying to think of which Patriots players I'm higher on than consensus. Is Juju's knee all right? Because I think I'm higher on Juju than
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, assuming Juju's like healthy, you know, I think his draft stock is a little lower than it should be. He's getting drafted close to like wide receiver 50. And he, you know, for all intents and purposes, again, assuming he's healthy, should have the most receptions on the Patriots, which again, their offense, I'm banking on being better than last year. So that's where I'm higher on Juju. In a deep league, it's Devontae Parker, because as we just said, if Juju's not healthy, Parker probably finishes the season with the most receptions right there. So again, maybe I'm prognosticating incorrectly, but I don't know. I think Devontae Parker for his wide receiver 80 draft slot right now, if you're in a deep league, go ahead and snag Parker.
I drafted Juju.
You did?
That's a point.
Where'd you get him?
I think like 9th, 10th round. He's my wide receiver 4. I mean, I kind of was on the same page in a PPR league. I think he's going to have a ton of receptions, so I was happy with that. He was my one of 2 Patriots. So I bet Alex can guess the other guy.
Chad Ryland.
Yeah.
Brian's been really into like the rookie kickers and punters this year. He almost cried when Bryce Behringer had a bad week in Green Bay.
It was tough.
Brian, when the Patriots are on a bye, are you going to carry 2 kickers so you can keep the Patriots kicker?
I might have to. I might have to. We'll see how it goes, though. If he's tearing it up, I'm not going to be able to just release him like that. So we'll see.
That's sort of my logic. Is I can't draft a kicker with anything other than the last round. You can't. There's no excuse to roster 2 kickers unless you have Justin Tucker.
I got him in the second to last round. I didn't like overextend. I went kicker defense to end it, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there if he's playing well in the bye week.
There are viewers of our show shocked that you waited that long and that you didn't try to draft Bryce Behringer. But
if I could have, I would have.
Well, have you ever done a punter league?
I sadly have not. But
TJ, do you even know about a punter league?
Barth, my longest running league, my home league, the one that started when I was a sophomore in high school, we had punters for the first, I want to say 5 or 6 seasons before we voted them out.
So no. So this isn't a league that has punters. This is it. Do you know what a steals and saves league is in baseball?
No.
So a steals and saves league in baseball is you get a point for a steal, you get a point for a save. That's it. You're just drafting fast guys and closers, and that's the whole league. The punter league, which started as a punter coach league, because Yahoo used to have a slot where you could add draft coaches, was essentially the football equivalent of that. You got a point for a win. lost a point for loss for the coach. The punter is you get points for I-20s. You lose points for touchbacks. You lose a ton of points if the punts return for a touchdown. That's it. You don't draft anybody else. That's the whole league. You have like 4 or 5 punters, and that's it.
That's pretty good.
Maybe we need to get Brian into one of those.
The way we did it was it was simple. It was 2 points for a punt inside the 10, 1 point for a punt inside the 20, and it decided a championship one year, and
that's
the
awesome.
League decided it was out.
I think that's all the reason to double down on it. How about the Patriots defense in fantasy? Are they a must draft?
Well, if you really want to have the Patriots defense, go ahead. They're absolutely a must draft for you. But for me, no defense is a must draft. I'm taking my defense second to last round every single time in drafts because I stream defenses. I don't like having more than one defense. On a bye week, I don't like having a defense that is playing a good team that week and taking the gamble. I play the matchups. I look at the point spreads. I look at the over-unders, and I say which defense on the waiver wire this week has the best chance to not allow a ton of points. I don't feel comfortable rostering the same defense the whole year. I know some people have, some people do, and you strike gold. Some years there are defenses that just force a ton of turnovers, and good for you. But the likelihood that you find that defense of 12 other people in your league is on the low side.
So Washington won, right? At home against Arizona.
Exactly. Washington at home against Arizona, and Baltimore, I believe, are 10-point favorites against Houston week 1. Yep. And both of those defenses are not going in like the top 8 defenses right now. So I have one of those two every time.
Love that. I got Washington, so music to my
perfect.
Ear. But are you sticking with them?
No, I stream. I go week by week. It's probably going to be whoever the Cardinals are against will be at the top of my list every week this year.
There's always a team like that. There's always the team that is, they're tanking a few weeks into the season. And I honestly wouldn't, if you really have the roster room to spare, grab the defense they're taking 2 weeks in advance. So you always have that defense.
100%.
All right. Here's a question. Why do people take defenses before kickers? Because defenses can change, but kickers are consistent.
I kind of disagree that kickers are consistent. Whether a kicker has 4 field goals in a game or 0 attempted field goals in a game, you telling me you can predict that? I wouldn't say kickers are consistent.
I'd read that more as, and that's a good point. I read that more as like, if you draft a kicker, you draft a guy, right? You know who you drafted. Whereas if you draft the Jets defense, is a bad example because the Jets have a ton of talent, but it was the first thing that came to my head. You draft the Jets defense and Sauce Gardner gets hurt. Like you just, right. And it's not like losing one player that you can then go pick up the backup.
It's a fair point. I look at defenses, as I just said, I draft the team they're playing that week. I don't necessarily draft the defense unless it's, a garbage football team, then I'll just go pick up a mediocre defense. But I draft a defense based on who they're playing that week rather than, I like Sauce Gardner, because the likelihood that one Sauce Gardner actually generates me fantasy points on a predictable basis. Like, how are we going to predict when Sauce Gardner has an interception? How are we going to predict whether Matt Judon has a half a sack or 1.5 or 2 sacks,
Well, I mean, you look at the other team's offensive line for the sacks, but let me ask you this. There's guys on the Patriots, I think, to bring it back to the Patriots in fantasy. A guy like Demario Douglas, rookie 6th-round pick. Kayshon Boutte, rookie 6th-round pick, who have kind of made some noise in camp and look like they could play roles. There's always that question after week 1, a guy breaks out, and then do you sign him? Do you not want to burn your waiver spot that early? Things like that. How should people handle those players, and specifically when it comes to the Patriots, if they get like a breakout game from Demario Douglas week 1, should people rush to claim him or should they be hesitant?
It's a great question. And that's the question every fantasy manager has, right? When someone puts up a great performance, you gotta just hold yourself back from chasing past numbers. You have to look at how sustainable is it in the future. Did this player do well because maybe a couple guys got injured and they're now the first or second option on the team? Or did they do well because they caught a random massive touchdown, but in reality only played 31% of the offensive snaps? You got to look at their role, the type of routes they're running, when they're being used. Were they on the field every single time the team got inside the 20? Because if they were, sure, maybe that's indicative of future performance as well, because you have a chance to get more touchdowns that way. But definitely look at the things that led to that performance and how they can impact the player going forward, rather than just, I see a lot of points, I'm going to pick up a lot of points.
So I think maybe one of the biggest Patriots-related fantasy things here is Ramondre Stevenson. Well, obviously a top back, right? He's a good pass catcher, but how do you think Zeke is going to affect that workload, and how much does that kind of knock Stevenson down on your rankings? Because as a Tony Pollard owner last year, that Zeke was very frustrating. So are you thinking that type of same thing for Ramondre, and is that knocking you down on him?
Yeah, that's very valid. Zeke is gonna be frustrating for Ramondre Stevenson rosterers, but like, if I don't know, you're kind of owning that when you draft a Patriots running back. You always have owned that, but I'd like to think that whatever touchdown Zeke will vulture will be sort of overshadowed, or at least equaled out, by the Patriots offense being better in general. For Ramondre Stevenson. So Stevenson, I moved him down a couple slots. Obviously, the touchdown vulturing is real there, but I didn't move him down too much, because think about the names he's being drafted around, for me at least. I have him at RB11 right now. Before Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, and Aaron Jones. Like, all of those guys are probably, like, none of those guys I'm looking at and I'm like, oh, definitely going to be better than Ramondre Stevenson. I think he's probably the most talented of those guys right now. So I'm gonna bet on the talent there and take him over, a Joe Mixon who hasn't looked that good, and some off the field questions and gets banged up a little bit. And well, I'm taking him over Najee Harris, who, again, is he really that good? Do the Steelers really like Jaylen Warren? Like, there's no doubt in my mind Ramondre Stevenson will lead the Patriots in carries. Unless he gets hurt, The other guys, there's a little bit of a chance. Like, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon could creep up there. It's kind of a timeshare, at least in between the 20s. I don't think this is going to be a timeshare for Ramondre Stevenson.
Which rookies do you like this year?
A good question. Let me think here. Rookies, I think Zach Charbonnet on the Seahawks is in a good spot right now, mainly because Kenneth Walker, we don't really have any clarity on his groin. His groin injury. Like, he was good last year, but I don't know. They drafted Charbonnet in, what was it, the second round this year?
Yep.
For a reason, So I like where he's getting drafted. Charbonnet not going until like RB in the 40s sometimes. So I think he's decent value right there. In terms of rookie wide receivers almost always outperform their ADP, their average draft position. So if you want to draft a rookie wide receiver and it's not, an extreme reach, do it. Draft your rookie wide receiver. I really like Zay Flowers. Who knows what's going on with those? What's going on, Justin? Who knows what's going on with those receivers in Baltimore? Odell Beckham could have a resurgence here, but I don't know. Zay Flowers looks really good. So I like Zay Flowers there. For tight ends, I was just looking at the Lions depth chart after the cuts, and Packers. Sam Laporta will be fine, but Luke Musgrave looks to be like the tight end one with a bullet over there in Green Bay. So if you can grab him, like, he's going as like tight end 26 right now. I mean, you got to be in a really deep league, but hey, it's worth a shot.
All right, Brian, I don't know if you have any more questions. I got one more I got to get in here.
I have one about tight ends quick. I could build off that. Mike Gesicki is getting drafted over Hunter Henry. Why? Is that just red zone touchdown potential, or everything question. We've seen? I'd say Henry's the lead guy in that tight end room. Good chemistry with Mac. So I don't know. Is Henry kind of a sleeper there at the tight end position?
It's so funny. This is where you got to pay attention to local media, because there's always this fantasy consensus that comes out in the offseason, and no one actually questions it until you get into, listening to coverage from an actual camp. So right now, because of, your guys' coverage, I'm obviously taking Henry over Mike Gesicki. But I think on paper, you look at Henry the past season or two, hasn't been that good production-wise. and they just went and signed Mike Gesicki, who is as pure of a receiving tight end as you get. So no one's drafting either of them super high. So they're both kind of under the radar fantasy picks in general. But I think that's probably why Gesicki is being ranked ahead of Hunter Henry. But I definitely would definitely rank Henry above Gesicki.
So people who don't know, TJ's a Falcons fan. By the way, we're talking to TJ Horgan, covers fantasy football for Fantasy Pros. If you're somebody that's going to tweet at me on Sundays for fantasy advice, I don't have it. Follow TJ, tweet at him. That's why we're having him on right now, because he's the guy. I don't really dabble in fantasy. But a guy I want to ask about, because this is a Patriot show, and this guy was a Patriot. I know a lot of Patriots still love him, and you're a Falcons fan, is Cordero Patterson.
Man, the RB1 right now for the Falcons.
So hang on. Patriots only kept 2 running backs on their initial roster. A lot of people think maybe there's another move coming. They especially need a pass-catching running back with, Ezekiel Elliott, Ramondre Stevenson, big physical backs. The Falcons keep throwing all these draft picks at running backs, Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson. Any chance Cordero Patterson shakes loose in Atlanta, TJ?
When you say shakes loose, do you mean like teams inquire about his value and gets traded?
Yes. Or gets cut or whatever.
He's not getting cut.
I figure
he is as pure of a fan favorite in Atlanta as there has been in a really long time, man. You saw him in New England, how much the fans loved him, even in his small role in New England. But I mean, the fans love Cordero, and he loves Atlanta too. Like, if you see his tweets, his interviews, he loves Atlanta. So I would be truly shocked if they parted ways with Cordero at any point this season for any reason.
All right, so I get Brian back to the drawing board on that one. Would have been fun, but sounds like he's not saving the day.
How's Jonnu Smith doing down there?
Oh yeah, did he make the team? I didn't even look today.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith made the team. He's going to be the Falcons tight end too, most likely. I saw actually there was a really good interview the Falcons put out, sort of like a boardroom style in a barbershop, and there was Jesse Bates, John Abraham, the OG defensive end. Jonnu Smith was in there, Calais Campbell, and it was a really good interview the Falcons put out. But no, I'm excited to see what Smith can do, especially back with Arthur Smith, his former head coach as well.
We were excited
former OC, pardon me.
We were excited about Jonnu Smith once too. We've been there. Well, we're doing this. One more former Patriot on the Falcons, Younghoe Koo. Fantasy value?
Younghoe Koo was a Patriot?
Practice squad.
I was going to say, he only played regular season.
He never kicked for them, but he was on the practice squad. I think the Falcons actually signed him off the Patriots practice squad.
That's funny.
Or maybe he had one stop in between.
Learned something.
No, yeah, they signed him. They signed him off the Patriots practice squad.
Fans love Younghoe. Another fan favorite in Atlanta. I mean, this really is not indicative of fantasy value. Again, I stream kickers, go with a new kicker every week. But yeah, I mean, if he can just figure out a way to make extra points, the dude's money from anything under 55. Well,
that's an extra point.
No, but in an actual field goal situation, he is money from 55 or shorter. But extra points, it's a coin flip.
I guess he'd rather miss the 1-point ones than the 3-point ones, but
he's even money.
TJ,
he's even money on the onside kicks, right? Wasn't he the guy who had
That's what I'm saying.
2 in 1 game last year or something?
Yep.
TJ Horgan from Fantasy Pros at TJ Horgan TV on Twitter. Thanks for joining us, dude.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, some good fantasy stuff there.
For the people who've been asking for that for 3 years since Evan was here, there you go. We did fantasy football on Patriots.
There you go. Is that not?
People have been asking and asking and asking. Then we did it, and then the comments, people are like, "What are you doing?"
Is that not a yearly segment you got there?
No,
first time.
No, that is. We did before that. I think we did one fantasy segment once because Evan sent me his draft, and I thought it was bad, and I wanted to bring it up on the show and just kind of cook it. It wasn't even fantasy advice. It was just me making fun of Evan, which we do. Unlike fantasy, we did a lot on the show back in the day.
Yep.
So there you go. You got yours at TJ Horgan TV on Twitter. Stop asking me for fantasy advice. I don't have it. He's the guy. You can ask Brian. I don't know, Brian. Do you do fantasy advice?
I used to write some fantasy stuff a few years ago, but
all right, so you can ask.
I don't anymore. But I'm still, I still follow it. I still play, so I could I can give you some advice. It's not professional advice, but I can give you some advice if you ask. And if you don't yell at me when it's wrong afterwards, but
that's part of the reason I don't do it. I remember like what year would this have been? I think it was 2021 when they had all the injuries at running back. And like we didn't know who was going to start one of the games. And I tweeted as a Patriots reporter, whoever it was, like Damian Harris took the first snap at running back during like the warm-ups before the game. Like the 90-minute, that period they do. As a Patriots reporter, I tweeted that. Patriots fans know that really doesn't mean much. But fantasy Twitter got a hold of it.
And they all added.
And everybody started Damian Harris. And then I forget, like Ramondre or whoever it was had a big game. And I got like some nasty messages. And it's like, it's not my fault. You didn't understand what this meant. So
I'm already ready for the Patriots to score 2 touchdowns week 1 and Chad Ryland have 2 points and everyone be yelling at me or something for 2 extra points. But whatever, we'll get there.
If they score 2 touchdowns against that Eagles defense, maybe we're trending in the right direction with this offensive line.
We'll see. Speaking of the offensive line, did you see the Mac update? We could end with one last Patriots thing.
Was this the thing from Reese?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Will Jordan Humphrey got cut.
Oh, bring him back. We need another tight end, right? But yeah.
What was the Mike Reese thing?
So Reese was on Sports Hub today with Zoe and Bertrand, and he said that his health, talking about Mac, his health wasn't good after the preseason game in Green Bay because of all the hits he took. He said that went underreported and undertold, like his toughness to even come back the next week in practice. And he then added, I think that's part of the reason they didn't go to Nashville for the joint practices, and he obviously didn't play in that final preseason game down there in Tennessee. So maybe Mac already, dealing with something minor here to start the year behind an already battered offensive line.
That would be bad.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's plain and simple. Like if he's already hurt, this is why I didn't want to play him a ton against Green Bay. We talked about it on that show. This offensive line, the issues are going to keep compounding themselves.
Yep. Now you don't have a backup for him, so better hope he's healthy. But anything else before we cut it off here for the night you got?
I think that's it. We'll do a more thorough breakdown on Thursday once things settle. People go on IR, people are brought back. We'll have the full practice squad. I'm not a huge fan of reacting to the initial roster. I get we have to do it. It's a story of the day. I think there is some value in it, but again, especially this team specifically. Oh, hang on. I'm seeing something in the chat here.
Oh, Zach Kuntz.
Yeah, did he get cut?
I was just
because he had a good preseason. Is it Z-A-C-K or Z-A-C-H? I don't remember.
Z-A-C-K, I think. I'm not.
I'll find it. I would just say I like it much better once we have an idea on the actual roster versus kind of this, call it a skeleton of a roster.
Yeah, he did get cut.
Make the call.
That's interesting.
Patriots should make that call.
Yeah, because if you want to shut everyone up to say they didn't take a tight end from this historic tight end draft class, just go get one now. Did Rappaport really say something about Zappe? I just saw a comment there in the chat.
Did he? Is this all coming in?
That he might get claimed. We're going. It's like I think it's a 50-second video clip, so you probably have to listen to that. But
all right, well we'll react to that on Thursday. Yeah. It's breaking news during the show.
All right, so we're down to 53, but it will change a lot, and we'll get a practice squad over the next 24, 48 until week 1, pretty much. So until we come back on Thursday, you can follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth and go read all his coverage over at 985thesportshub.com. Follow me on Twitter at @IamBrianHines and go check out all my roster cut down work over at Pat Pulpit.
Hang on, I got the update from Rappaport.
All right, let's hear it quick.
Rappaport says it sounds like Zappe has a real chance to get claimed.
All right, there we go.
So they may need a new backup quarterback.
Could be moving forward without Zappe here, but
yep.
we'll be down to talk about that on Thursday and everything else that happens from now and between then. But thank you, as always, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you guys then.